Thank you, President. The opportunity to speak in this debate and thank all organisations which have provided briefings and who work each day to address social isolation and loneliness. And I too welcome the Minister to her role. I'm sure she will be braw. There is increasing recognition of social isolation and loneliness as a major public health issue, and many have discussed this already across Chamber this afternoon. And we know it can have a significant impact on a person's physical and mental well-being. That's why the £3.8 million Social Isolation and Loneliness Fund aims to reduce inequality by bringing people from communities across Scotland together. Presiding Officer, however, as the Minister has described, we are in the midst of a cost crisis, a cost of living crisis, made worse by the Tory government's economic mismanagement and Brexit. And I'm going to make a further point about that. It's no coincidence that the IMF predicts that the UK is set to be the worst performing economy in the G20. The disastrous UK government September mini-budget created unnecessary additional financial hardship for households and businesses all across the country. And Brexit is forecast to deal a 4% hit to the UK GDP, with UK imports and exports expected to be 15% lower than if the UK had remained in the EU with continued access to the single market and customs union. People across Scotland are paying a steep price for this economic incompetence, the forced austerity and Brexit. And the current high level of inflation is at 10.4%, and it is hurting the most vulnerable people and heaping more pressure onto our public services. The UK is expected to suffer the biggest fall in living standards since records began in the 50s, with real household disposable income expected to fall by 5.7% over 2022 to 23 and 2023 to 24. The Resolution Foundation found that 15 years of stagnating wages have left the UK workers £11,000 worse off per year. And you might be asking, what has this got to do with isolation and loneliness? Well, this evidence is clear. The Tory cost of living crisis means the poorest and most vulnerable in our society are more likely to experience poorer mental and physical well-being, lower life satisfaction and feelings of loneliness. Without a doubt, this will have an impact on people's ability to make and maintain connections, to take up opportunities to interact with one another and to stay physically and mentally healthy. Paul O'Kane mentioned the Red Cross research earlier, and results of an online opinion poll released in December 2022 for the British Red Cross showed that 81% of Scottish people agreed that the increased cost of living will make more people lonely. 43% said that they would restrict how much they socialise because the cost of living is going up. More than a quarter of adults in Scotland have accessed the NHS due to the impact of the cost of living crisis on bringing people together and building connections. Hang on a sec. The cost of living crisis on their mental and physical health, according to the new research by the Joseph Rowntree Foundation. Social isolation and loneliness are public health issues which have been exacerbated because of the pandemic and will continue to affect people in an ongoing way. And obviously this cost crisis is paramount, that needs to be dealt with. Presiding Officer, support for community groups bringing people and communities together to tackle isolation was launched in March, and the £3 million Social Isolation and Loneliness Fund is part of the Recovering Our Connections that aims to reduce inequality by bringing people from communities across Scotland together. It will provide vital long-term support for organisations and projects working on the ground to bring people together and build connections in communities throughout the country. There are a number of organisations working across Dumfries and Galloway and the Scottish borders that meet these aims. Change Mental Health, formerly Support in Mind, they have bases in Stranraer, Dumfries and Castle Douglas, and I've visited both with two of the areas already with former MSP Jim Hume, who is the Change President, and we were able to witness the incredible work that the staff and the volunteers do, bringing people together for various activities which tackle isolation. And Eildon Housing in Hawick, they're a social registered landlord, and they help looking at social isolation. They do specific work to tackle this issue. Another fantastic organisation is Dumfries and Galloway LGBT+ on Newell Terrace in the town of Dumfries and Stranraer. The team, led by Ian Campbell, work together with the LGBT+ people of all ages to provide support, to bring people together, to tackle loneliness, but also promote LGBT+ acceptance and specifically to reduce and tackle stigma across Dumfries and Galloway. It is a rural area and it's a challenge for people at times to address their social needs and their isolation that happens. They have drop-in sessions, they attend the agricultural shows, they deliver training and education, and they have a great online presence. And I've met the team on a number of occasions, and I've heard how many LGBT+ people, particularly in rural D&G, rarely get the chance to interact with each other due to the rurality and the challenges around acceptance. So their work is vital. And I'd invite the Minister to come and meet with the team when her diary allows. Presiding Officer, in closing, I welcome the work that has been taken forward by the Scottish Government. I applaud the fantastic organisations across Scotland, Dumfries and Galloway and the Scottish borders to tackle isolation, and I welcome a positive outcome for the recovery of our connections, the Recovery Our Connections plan. Finally, Presiding Officer, we can't keep mitigating Tory policies without full fiscal ability. We can do so much better as a normal independent country. Thank you.